Michael Yo's got his own show. Michael Yo's got his own show. If you're looking for a place to go, the only place to go is the Yo Show. The only place to go is the Yo Show.
What's up? It's Michael Yo. Welcome to the Yo Show. All right, here's the deal. My special drops March 15th. It's going to be all over my socials. It'll be on YouTube, Facebook, all that good stuff. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, leave comments. Anything else I'm missing, Brian, they need to do?
That sounds good.
Sounds good?
Was that fast enough?
Yeah, it was. You're very slow on your answers, though. It's like almost like
I'm running two cameras, a computer, an iPad, an audio board. I got to unmute the mic. You just sit there, buddy.
Oh, I like it. Okay. Please welcome a very funny comedian, Sean Patton. What's up, my man?
Thank you. And I want to just say, everything you just said about having to all the unmuting, we're doing that in our minds constantly. Constantly, you motherfucker. No, it's
I mute out Brian all the time. Yeah. Every time he talks, I just hit the mute button.
No, it is sort of like when nowadays, as a comedian, you have to not only be a comedian, you have to have a podcast, you have to film the podcast, you have to have specials, you have to put out content, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think we're so cut out to do it because we're already doing that stuff in our brains 24/7.
Isn't it? Are you married? Do you have kids? Or
I'm not married. I'm in a very long-term relationship.
Okay, so the reason why I asked that is because my wife will catch me just staring into space and be like, "Oh, you're thinking about comedy." Like, because like they're talking, but you're totally focused on this bit.
Yeah, like if you're a comedian, you need to be with someone who understands when I'm gonna go get coffee, and then you come home 4.5 hours later.
Yeah,
like I know where you've been. You've been taking a walk, and by walk I mean figuring out that bit, that choking out a sperm bit that's been the bane and Batman of your existence for 4 or 5 years.
You know what it is? It's our golf. You know how a lot of men leave the house and go golfing for like 6 hours?
Yeah.
We leave the house and go work out a bit for a couple hours.
I wish I have tried for a decade now to find one activity to be like, you know what I mean? Just
Are we the same person?
Yeah.
No, I'm serious because here's the most, this is the biggest question I get.
Yeah.
What's your hobby? And I have no hobbies because every hobby I take on becomes a profession.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like literally, I can't tell you outside of podcasting, TV, or everything I do here, this is what I love doing. You know?
Yeah. I mean, well, also every hobby you have just becomes fodder. Or not fodder, just becomes like, oh, I'm going to write about this, obviously.
It becomes a bit.
It becomes like, so you almost like take it less seriously because in the back of your mind, you're like, well, okay, I could knock 2 strokes off my game today, or I can just play the entire round with a pitching wedge and see what happens and write a bit about it. Also, I don't know shit about golf.
Me neither.
I can feel some people being like, an entire round with a pitching wedge? What, are you out of your mind? I'm like, no, you're right. No, you're right. Please continue golf.
Like I've tried golf. Have you ever tried golf?
Yeah. I mean, I suck at it, but I can also, golf, guitar are 2 things that I cannot do well.
But you want to.
But I have the confidence that makes people think I'm professional at both.
See, I'm that dude that loves to fail fast. Like if I'm not good at something, I stop it right away. I'm not the dude that will do comedy for 5 years and still not be good.
Yeah.
And be like, well, it's coming. Literally, I gave myself 3 times.
Yeah.
I gave myself, if I didn't get a lot of laughs by my 3rd time, I'm stopping comedy. But I learned that from my old boss. So she taught me that. She goes, fail fast and then move forward.
Well, I mean, I feel almost like everything now, especially nowadays, I don't even think this is just comedy. I think this is any sort of, everyone's a creator now. Everyone's content driven. There was a time where it felt like you could give your craft, your skill set, time to develop, or like you could take a risk and be like, I can give this 3 years.
Oh, no, no.
Now it's like, nope, you got 6 to 8 months.
Well,
just to see if you can do it.
Yeah. Well, comedy specials, whether you like it or not, are not comedy specials anymore. It's clips.
No.
It's all about clips.
Yeah.
So I'm putting out a special March 15th, but I know it's only 30. I'm doing a new 30-minute special every year because mainly, I mean, it's great material.
Yeah.
But it's more about the clips getting views, so you sell tickets.
Exactly.
Because you don't have time anymore in today's society.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna. I know nobody's going to watch an hour special because sometimes I'll throw on Dave Chappelle, my favorite comedian, and get through like 20 minutes. And then my kids are like, hey, I need, I got to go do something with them. So I was like, I'm just making bite-sized specials now because it's all about updating your audio catalog and your video catalog. So.
I mean, that's smart. I mean, that's funny too, because I just like last week filmed a special and it's so goddamn long. And I'm like, I know here, it's one of those things where it's like, I know like what you just said is right. Like in today's world, you do have to sort of you're kind of putting out the buffet but you have to be like, hey, but you can take just beans and chicken if you'd like, but there's the rest of it here that if you eat the beans and chickens with this dip and with this rice and you keep eating it, you'll love it all as a meal. But if you only have time for dessert or just for this part, fine. But this special that's like long and it's
when you say
story,
long, how long?
70 minutes.
70 minutes. So is there any way to do a part 1, part 2? Where you release
probably what's going to end up happening.
Yeah.
We're going to have to chop it into 2 parts. But like but I also knew that going into this special. It was like a 1-person show I did in Edinburgh years ago that I stopped doing because it was a lot. And I was like, I'll get back to that in a minute. And then a year and a half went by and then the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
And then during the pandemic, I was like, no, I have to do that show. It's a 1 thematic hour. And I love it. I think it's awesome. I love it. And I'm going to put it out knowing like, hey, this is a risk at this time. And whether I put it out in 1 episode or 1 episode, 2 episodes or one thing, the one I do after this one is going to be more.
Oh, yeah.
I had to get this one out,
I understand that. Like I'm to the point where if they won't give you a sitcom, create your own sitcom. So once a year.
Oh, yeah, man.
I'm going to give you a 30-minute special on the same day. So hopefully you'll build up steam, and then when the Netflix call, I got to a point where I wanted to own everything. I didn't even pitch the special out to people. It was just like, I want to own it 100%, put it on YouTube, get friends to support it, and see where it goes. So that's where I am.
That's
right
awesome.
Now, where I just want, I don't know. I feel like after people take so much from you in comedy.
Yeah.
If you can own a piece of something you do, and then you can license it out for a company to sell and do for you, like that's the whole thing I'm doing this.
Well, then also like you realize you come from like I come from that generation of comedy. When I started, where it was like you develop your hour, or like there was like a map.
Yeah.
It was like you get your late night spot, then you get your Comedy Central half hour, then you get your hour special, then you get your TV/movie/ hired as a correspondent on the Daily Show, and then the world is yours, right? And that model was dying as soon as I started getting good, right? And now it's like, yes, it works for certain comedians, like it still works for like Roy Wood Jr.
Yeah, and Hassan,
and Hassan. Yeah, it still worked for him. It still worked for. Who else is out there that's still doing it? Dulce.
Yeah.
She's doing great on the Daily Show. It's Ronnie, it worked for like, they were like the last breed or the last round of.
But then you have people like Ali Wong that does an amazing special. And then like the biggest thing.
Right.
Let me tell you, I was with Ali Wong a week before her special came out doing the Pasadena Ice House in front of 60 people. And it's just amazing how it's interesting how you're the same person when the special and you're doing the same material. But since it's not a lot of people have seen it or it hasn't got exposure, people aren't coming out to see it, and to see the difference after that came out, it's so awesome to see. And she's a good person, so it's so awesome to see.
Allie's one of those few, like not few. I mean, there's more than people think, but Allie's one of those. What I'm talking about is people who are still good people post success.
Yes.
Like Allie is definitely. I mean, I remember when she moved to New York because she was I believe San Francisco comic for a while, and then she was in New York for a few years. I'd see her all the time. We'd hang out. We were doing the same shows, and then she just started to kind of. And then she was gone. Yeah. And I didn't see her for a while. And then that special dropped. And it was just like, it was one of those specials where everything about it was just the perfect time. Like,
she was the first one to be pregnant.
I think first, like, I know she wasn't the first Asian female comedian to have it, but first one on Netflix. Yeah. And like such a great special and such a pure, like, oh, this is 100% Ali Wong.
Yes.
You have zero questions about who this human being is after you watch this special. So funny. And yeah, like, but she had to do it. She didn't know when she shot that special that it wasn't like Netflix reached out to her and was like, we're going to give you $2 million and here's a special.
That special, I think it was on a night where they shot a couple specials that night.
Yeah.
And it was
okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure, but I know Comedy Dynamics sometimes. They'll have nights where they'll shoot 2 to 3 specials in a night, use the same stage, and pump them out, or change the lighting in the background. So I think it was on one of those nights. Maybe I'm wrong, but regardless, I mean, she crushed it, and now it's great to see people. I guess my thing is, I've been with a lot of people since I was in the music industry too, that when I interviewed them, nobody knew who they were. And then a month later.
What did you do in the music world?
So I was a music director and I was on the radio.
Okay.
For a lot of like Y100 in Miami.
Oh, okay.
So.
You ever talk to Cypher?
Cypher Sounds?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, here. I got to know him here, though.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I was in Miami. DJ Laz was up there and people. But what was interesting is breaking a record or meeting an artist like Sean Paul before Get Busy came out. I interviewed him. Nobody knew who he was. Literally 6 months later, the biggest artist in the world. You know, Destiny's Child was like that. I interviewed I was at the radio station in Houston. I was just an intern at the time. I was super young. But they would literally beg to sing in our conference room.
Right. You
know, and then to see Beyonce and Destiny's Child at one time be the biggest artist in the world and Beyonce still killing it. It's just amazing to see that happen, you know, and you're so close to it, you're like, all right, this is going to happen for me. You know, so you just got to wait your turn. You know?
Yeah. I mean, that's like with like that, because I was talking to fucking, actually, this sounds like I'm just name dropping, but like I was talking to Ronnie Chang.
Yeah,
like,
love him.
Yeah, like 3 weeks ago. And he's also in that Daily Show.
Yeah.
This Daily Show cast now, which I feel like is like, I think the cast right now is awesome. Like all of them start, I mean, I never really watched the Daily Show throughout life and went, what a dud. They've always done great as far as who they've cast. But like the crew now is really, they're all, you see them all over New York constantly doing spots and they're great. And like, but I was talking to him about like, he's just similar to you. He's just like got to put out something every year. And I'm like, even at your level, you're worried about that? But yeah, you're right. Of course you're worried about that.
Because what you don't want is to go stale.
Exactly.
Like
never.
And here's what's interesting is I learned this at the Comedy Store. There was a night, it was like a bunch of huge comedians and Steve-O, right? And I'm not saying Steve-O's not
of course, but he's not a comedian.
But okay.
Yeah.
You could say that. Let's just say he's a comedian.
Okay.
Or not, whatever.
But I know what you mean. He's made a living. He's a Steve-O. He's a
Steve-O. That's why I said there was a bunch of big comedians and Steve-O.
Yeah.
So, but what I learned about that night, his fans that were there, it did not matter if Bill Burr crushed, Dave Chappelle crushed, Chris Rock could have been.
Sure.
When Steve-O came on, he was everything to them. And that when a light went off is, stop trying to please everybody with your comedy. Find your people, which I believe like Ronnie found, Ali found, and Netflix helped, of course. But once you find your audience, you know, that's the best feeling. Because I think when you first get into it, you're like, I want everybody to like my stuff. And then you find out, and then once you get seasoned in it, I'm just like, I just want to find the people that like me, and then let's build from there. You know, I don't care about everybody. I just want my people.
Well, it's also like no one wants to grapple with the reality. I mean, it's not harsh reality. It's just a reality. But like early on, you don't want to have to think like, there's going to be people who don't like what I do.
Yeah.
There's going to be audiences that hate it while I'm up there. There's going to be some bad sets and some bumpy. I mean, here at this club, I love this club, but every week there's 14 shows and there's always a few like.
There's 4 out. I tell everybody.
Yeah.
And actually, this club has helped me grow when I go out on the road and it's a bad show.
Yeah.
I'm like, every 14 shows here, you're going to get 3 to 4 that are okay.
Yeah.
Like, I believe the comics they bring in are so seasoned. You're never going to have a bad show.
Never have a bad show.
But it's, like I said, I say all crowds are kind of the same. As long as they're laughing where they're supposed to laugh. Even some crowds would be a roar. Some crowds would be a chuckle.
Right,
But they're getting the jokes. You know?
Exactly. And like, you can't, like you're saying.
You don't know what they've been through.
Every single great club will have 1 or 2 weird shows a night, you know, or a week. But also, every great comedian will have, even if you're at a level of like you're selling out theaters, there's going to be a couple theaters every year that are like, that one kind of sucked.
Yeah.
There's always going to be like, no one wants to ever deal with the reality of, hey, there are rough times. There's going to be people who just straight up hate you, and if you read YouTube comments, you'll find out who they are. and that's just the facts, because if you try and be that comedian for everyone, you will be at first. At first you will be, and then eventually you'll be that comedian for no one.
Yes.
Because people are like, oh, there's nothing more to you than that initial, hey, everyone, aren't I a perfect, snappy, happy, just silly guy? No, all right. Wait a second. That's not human.
Yeah.
No one's like that full time in real life. So you have to eventually be bold enough to put yourself out there as you and understand, like, this, maybe you don't end up selling out theaters, but maybe you end up selling out venues.
Yeah.
Maybe you end up selling enough tickets to live and be happy and live your life on your terms, and that's fucking amazing.
Yeah, because you're doing what you love.
Yeah, and that's part of what you're saying, putting out, but also like doing stuff like the podcast and like, you know, we don't have to deal right now. We're doing something right now, and we're not having to deal with a room full of execs. We're not getting notes from people who don't know what they're talking about. We're lucky. We get Brian.
Yeah, we get
Brian, the expert. He's over there. He knows but Brian knows what he's doing. He's been in the back of that room. He's seen some fucking roughs. He's seen us on stage. He's seen me. I know. I can hear Brian seeing me eat shit. He's seen it. But I've also had good ones here. But like, we get to deal at least with someone who's like, okay, he's cool.
Yeah.
Whereas,
I was talking to Mo Mandel about this. What's great about comedy is when you live in a world where you want to be casted for something or you're trying to move up in the entertainment field that's away from comedy, when you get all those no's, when you can go on stage and get yeses, it makes you feel like, okay, I'm in the game. They haven't caught up to normal people, what they think. And that feels good. It kind of gives you like, oh, okay, I can keep going.
Yeah, I mean, that's also something, especially like I have also heard comedians complain about how popular comedy has become because there are a lot of posers out there. It's like, yeah, sure. That can be the case if you want to be like, you could argue that, yeah, what's happening in stand up now is the same thing that happened to music in the 90s where just it exploded into like, I don't think indie bands existed before the 90s.
Yeah.
You know, and by indie bands, I mean like everyone knows about Pearl Jam, but who do you know Mother Love Bone was? Do you know who, the Meat Puppets were? They like, you talk about Seattle grunge, you think of the top 5 bands, but there were another dozen below them that were equally as good, if not better in some cases. I think that's with comedy in general. Like there's no such thing as like, not everyone's going to be a superstar anymore, but you can still be a superstar in your own niche.
Yes.
You find your own fan base.
And what's interesting is when you find that niche, like I see comedians now, like a Theo Von. I love Theo. He's a friend of mine. Yeah. But
fellow Louisiana boy.
There you go.
Yeah.
I knew Theo like 12, 13 years ago when he was trying to do like TV stuff.
Yeah.
And the true Theo didn't come out. But now when you watch him, this is a real thing. I've always known that Theo everybody loves now. Just him with his draw, just kicking it. Before he was trying to be more buttoned up for TV. And I go, that's not you. There's a little, awkwardness in you, little racial tension in you at times, So, because me and him, we've had great conversations. So it's a thing where now I love who he is and what he's representing himself, and people gravitated to it.
Dude, can I tell you a Theo Von story?
Yes, please.
So I met Theo in 2001, early, I want to say like March-ish, maybe even later, maybe like summer 2001 in Baton Rouge, right? He was still in college. I had dropped out, but was still living there, working at a restaurant, just being a fucking 21-year-old drunk, right? But Theo had just come off of that season of Road Rules.
Oh, yeah. So he was huge.
So he was like famous on campus. And I remember we were at this. Theo knows this. He's heard me tell this story before. So this is another. There was this bar in Baton Rouge. I believe it's still there. It's called Fred's. It's a standard college warehouse bar. It was the first place I ever had Red Bull and vodka. It was the first place, like, every college kid went. I'm just saying they didn't so much care if you were 21 years old to buy booze.
Done.
Right?
Gotcha.
And I remember I show up there one night, and it's just like a standard like Thursday night for me. I'm like, whatever. I'm getting hammered because I hate life. And there's all this buzz in there. Like, dude, that guy Theo's here. That guy Theo from Road Rules. Because back then also, that was 21 years ago. Everyone watched MTV still.
That was the huge, that was the biggest reality show at that time.
Right. And he was this guy's in the room, and everybody like, Theo, oh, we got this Theo. Now, at that time, I had aspirations of being a comedian. I hadn't started yet. I just didn't know how. So I remember vividly, I went to the bar, I ordered a Red Bull and bourbon. because that's what I got was Red Bull and bourbon because I thought I was badass. Theo was at the bar, and I knew he was there, but I didn't suspect this would get his attention. He heard me order a Red Bull and bourbon and found that interesting. I was like, why bourbon? I'm like, I just like it better than vodka. It's simple. And then I just like started talking to him. And I remember expecting him to be like, hey, man, you know, because he'd been on TV. But instead he was like, oh, yeah, what's up? You know, hi. And we were just shooting the shit for a minute. And I was talking about like wanting to move to LA and maybe, or New York, or I don't know. And I remember him being like, oh, go to LA. You know, I spent time out there. It was all right. And we're having this conversation. And then this slow song, Casey and JoJo's All My Life comes on. And he goes, oh, yeah, man, excuse me for a minute, though. And then he just there's a girl right there. I didn't realize there was some woman, you know, because I was a drunk fucking idiot that was standing there. He goes, excuse me. And then he just starts slow dancing with this fucking random college hottie to this song. And I'm like, well, I guess that was the end of my conversation with Theo. And he just fucking dances with this hot ass young girl. And I started comedy a year later. And then 2 years after that, at an open mic in New Orleans, he shows up. And I remember like, oh, I know, that's Theo. And like, oh shit, I know that guy. And I went over and said, what's up? He goes, oh yeah, man, you still drinking Red Bull and bourbon? I was like, good memory.
Yeah.
And then he was like, oh, I'm going to go on. And I was like, oh, no shit. You do. And he goes on and kills it. And he's like, I'm living in LA now. So it's like, that's a guy who I know people who have asked me, is like, is that really how he is? It's like, yeah, that's 100%. 100% who Theo is. He was that dude 21 years ago.
I forgot. It was probably about 13, 14 years ago. Me, Theo, and a bunch of people went to Oklahoma it was like a poker tournament. Wow. It was a reality show poker tournament.
That's
right?
fucking great.
So
that's money.
So Theo also was performing out there. And this is the first joke I ever heard Theo say. He walks out, and in Oklahoma, they had a lot. It was a casino, so there was a lot of obese people. Yeah. He walks out. He said his first joke. It did okay, not a lot of laughs. And he looks at everybody and goes, I don't really care because all you fat fuckers are going to die tomorrow. And I was like, wow. Wow, okay. He's going for it. He's like, you obese bitches or something you know how he talked. Yeah. It was so funny. And then we just became good friends. And he's always been a genuine dude. And I'm so happy for his success. Well, as far as you, what is there... I like to ask people this question because, you know, you've been in the comedy game for a while now. Yeah. If you could go back and change one thing, is there anything that you would have capitalized on you didn't? So like up and coming comics, I mean, you know, can learn from it?
I would say like I made the mistake early on of something I would go back and do, and this isn't something I could correct now, which I'm working on, but like I don't have a lot of content out there at all. I really don't. Just because like I said, I started in that world where it was like, be precious about your material. Don't just put it out there for free. And it took me a while to accept that was sort of like the way it's going to become. And now it is 100% that way. Yeah. And that would be the one thing I would go back, you know, 8 years ago and tell 8 year ago version of me, like, hey man, don't be precious with this. Yeah. Just put it out there, put the best possible version of it out there you can, and just understand. Also, burning material is a concept that does not exist anymore. No, because it does not exist anymore. Because it's not real. If you burned a joke, and I say this in quotes, and 4 million people like it, it's going to equate to ticket sales. Exactly. So they'll see more of you. Well, yeah. And that's the other thing. Like there used to be this idea like, oh man, I went through this recently with my special. Like there was a bit that I did on an album that I was like, I wanted to do it in this special I just shot, but I was like, but I already did it on the album. Who cares? And I remember it was Cypher being like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Yeah. He's like, you've only done it on an album. It's your material. Do it wherever the fuck you want. He was right. And it's like, I got so precious about like, but this is my material and it has to be presented properly. But it's like, no, it just needs, they're like children. Your material's like children. 100%. You have to let them out. You let them go. Like, I'm not the comedian. Like, I'm a storyteller, so it's harder for me to do that. But like, I respect the Sam Morrils and Mark Norman. They can come out with 100 jokes in a week. And that's what's so effective for social right now, to be able to write that quick bit, throw it out, and it's gone. Like, I can't watch the news and come up with a bit right there and some jokes. That's not my style. I'm more of, oh, this happened in my life. And it was funny. Let me heighten it. I'm with you. Yeah. So it's harder for me to just not burn material because I want a 30-minute special every year. So if I
throw away a good family story, it's like, now I got to start all over. So I think I'm operating on a different level where that's why I'm trying to do a new special every year. So hopefully those clips from that 30-minute special can last to the next year, and then I'll have a whole new one.
No, I mean, that's smart. I mean, and it's also, I wish I could tell I wish I would have listened. Because I know that now. I'm trying to put out more stuff now. I just personally also don't think it's there. I don't think there's any right or wrong.
No,
I just know that for me personally, putting out daily clips of me doing crowd work is not what I want.
Yeah.
It's just not what I want out there. It doesn't represent what I do on stage. And I've had that conversation with people who are like, just film the first couple minutes of your set and just put it out there. I'm like, no, because the first couple minutes of my set, because that's the other thing. It's like, I'm still working on shit.
Yeah.
I'm going to put stuff out there, but again, I'm going to put the best possible version. If you're a chef, I'm not just going to give you the ingredients of the dish and be like, well, cook it yourself. It's out there now.
Yeah.
Give me the time to at least make the dish. And then I'll put it out there. Maybe it won't have all the garnish I want. Maybe it won't be, have the perfect paired, dessert with it, but it'll be out there. Like, I just don't, but I refuse to I don't like the idea of pumping out. I think there's too much content also.
Yeah.
I think you can put out too much and it hurt you. And my theory there is that if you put out too much and your audience sees you too much online or on their socials, and they see a BC level, a sort of not your best too much, when you do come to town, they'll be like, well, I've seen them. Well, I've seen what they do.
And I also feel, and it
still has to be quality.
I agree with what you're saying. But I also believe too, if you put out crowd work and you're not a crowd work comic, people are going to come to your shows and just yell at you.
Fucking yell shit at you. Exactly.
So in a couple of comics I know that do that, they go, I'm getting heckled all the time now. Yeah. Because you're known for those clips. People want to be in your next clip, so they're acting out,
I mean, have you ever had, like, and that's the other thing too, like, there are still people who don't, like, aside from people who get inspired by your clips to show up and be like, you're a brown noser. I don't know why that would be. So I'm such a brown noser, that comedian. I just kiss everyone's ass. But aside from that, you still deal with just dingalings who don't understand it from just this concept of like, oh, well, you asked me a question, I was just responding. It's like, this is a hypothetical situation. This is stand-up. Or rhetorical, I'm sorry. It's a rhetorical situation. Like, you don't have to answer every fucking question I ask in an actual literal way when I get up here and be like, so you guys having a good day today? And you're like, not me. And it's like, okay, I'm going to ask you why. Don't give me a 22-minute response.
But you got to remember, like,
some people
what I learned about the Cellar here in Las Vegas, a lot of people, this is their first time ever seeing a comedy show. This is vacation
crazy
for them.
Too.
In New York, it's a totally different vibe. Like, the people that go to the Cellar in New York, they love comedy, and there's a lot of locals, and they keep coming back. What was it like the first time you met Esty and the first time you got passed at the Cellar?
I mean, it's kind of funny because Esty, my audition happened. I get off stage, and she was still there. Which I remember someone telling me in retrospect, like after the fact, they're like, oh yeah, if she's still there at the bottom of the stairs when you get off stage, you're in a good place. It's if she walks away halfway through your set and you get off stage and you got to go upstairs, that's where it's like, ooh. But if I was like, okay, she's still here. That's nice. And then we walk upstairs and she goes, it was okay. Here, and she gives me their email. She's like, email me, I'll give you some spots. We'll see how it goes. And I was like, all right. I mean, hey, that's good enough.
Yeah, that's good enough.
And like, now she puts me up.
And let me ask you, what did you think about the set? Was it just okay?
If looking back, I can 100% say she was right. Okay. Because I was so nervous that like, I definitely gave like I felt it in the moment. I was like, that was just my audition. Like,
what night did they do it on?
I want to say a Sunday.
Okay, Sunday. Yeah. Now I think they have the auditions on Friday or Saturday.
Friday, Saturday, yeah. But that was in late 2015-ish. Mm-hmm. Yeah, too late. I remember years later, it was Mother's Day 2018. So she would give me, up until then, she'd give me a spot or 2 or 3 a week, and it was no big deal. I was doing other clubs, and I'd go and I'd do my best and I'd hang out. But then on Mother's Day 2018, they brunch shows, right? and I was on one of the brunch shows, and Estee's at the brunch shows. She's hanging out. She's, talking to comics. Brunch at the Comedy Cellar is pretty awesome.
Oh, that's dope.
It's pretty awesome, yeah. And she's like, hey, by the way, and I was last on the lineup, she's like, Aziz is here. He's going to go up before you. And I was like, oh, damn it.
Yeah.
Because following any famous, I know following any famous person can just add an extra level of,
And then, but then you're also, you got to ride that wave from them, and they're going to go long.
Exactly.
And you already know you're going to be there, instead of 15 minutes, you'll be there another 30 to 45 minutes before you even get on stage.
But I will say that night, or that day, because it's a daytime show, he probably only did about 20, 25. And then I went on and had one of those and it was like all people with their moms in the audience. Yeah. And I just had one of those, you ever have one of those unexpectedly just perfect sets?
Yes.
Where you find tags you didn't realize were there, and the
crowd's playing along.
It's just everything. You even notice yourself delivering in a way where you're like, is that what I sound like? I sound cool as shit. And it was just this great set, and I get off stage, and she was downstairs. And I didn't know she was watching at all. And she was just like, oh! And she was just like, come upstairs. And she drags me back upstairs and gives me this just glimmering, shining review of that set. And then she started giving me 8 sets a week.
Nice.
So it's you never know. I had been past for a while, and I'd see her every time I was there on a weekend, and we'd say hello and nice to see you again. But this time it was it was like a second audition that neither one of us knew was going to happen.
Did you ever have that night where you bombed there or didn't do well, and Esty was watching and you knew she was?
Nah, if so, I haven't been aware of it yet. But you definitely have those rough nights even at the Cellar in New York. 100%. It's funny too, because newer comics will have those and get off stage and be like, "Oh my God, am I done?" I'm like, dude, if Esty stopped booking everyone who ever bombed, she'd have no comics.
Right?
This wouldn't be a comedy club. It would just be a restaurant.
That's part of it.
It's sometimes. She needs to see you bomb and see that you're still good. Yeah. I think she's savvy enough to she can watch you bomb,
and she's going to want to see your next set.
Okay, but this is still funny. Maybe it's just not working with this crowd.
Yeah.
Because I've also had those nights, not just at the Cellar, at other clubs, where you get off stage, you're like, Jesus Christ, I just ate shit. And then you go out to the bar afterwards and someone's like, hey, that was awesome.
Dude, the biggest problem I had when this was all the way to 4 years ago, if I didn't have a good set and somebody told me, a fan that came out to a show and spent money, said, hey man, great set. I wasn't that good. My friend's like, what are you doing? They just paid money to see you, and you're telling them, oh, no, they saw a shitty show. And they think it was great.
Yeah.
And then you learn that, and that's even for a lot of times when you go to a club and you didn't sell as many tickets as you thought you were going to sell, you think they care, but they don't. They just care about themselves and the show.
Oh, yeah, man.
If this room was a third full, right? And if this was your own night, you'd be like, oh, man, it's a slow night, blah, 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 blah. But what I learned is the people don't care. They just care about laughing that night. They don't care if it's packed or if there's 10 people here.
They just want to be there. Just we're here.
Yeah. We're here, so do your thing.
I would love to be able to have my ability coupled with the audience's expectations. Yes. Because then I would enjoy myself, because I'm like, oh my God, this is funny stuff. Yeah. But now I'm just like, my standards make me, and that sounds very arrogant. My ability,
no, I know. But it's true.
I work pretty hard at what I do.
Yeah. I mean, you always trying to heighten yourself. You're always trying to get the material better, and that's the thing is the audience. They just want to laugh, and it doesn't have to smash. It could just be funny, and they're fine with it. But you seem like you're a guy like me. You want to keep getting better, and you wanted to. At the end, I want the crowd to go nuts when I get off. I want the crowd to really feel it and to know, oh, he's great. Yeah. And that's the reason why I do it, because I love comedy, but I also love making people laugh. And it's just, you feel like a superhero when you have an amazing set.
Oh, yeah.
I tell everybody, it's the only place in real time you can say a whole act, think about something totally different, hear conversations, and analyze what people are doing. It's almost like an out-of-body experience.
Yeah.
There's no other time in your normal day that ever happens where that many, you're heightened that much.
Yeah, there's 15 things going on, and you have to be on top of all of them.
But you're hearing everything while you're saying your lines. It's crazy. What do you remember the first time you ever bombed?
Oh, yeah.
Well, where was it? What was that like?
I remember the first time. I feel like the first 5 or 6 sets, I I mean, I know I did okay, but the first time I ever truly bombed, like oh my God, this is happening, was early on. I'd been doing stand-up for maybe a year, and it was like one of my first ever like non-open mic bookings. And this is in New Orleans back then when there was really no comedy scene, but it was at this like bar in a place called Old Metairie.
Bars are the toughest.
Yeah, but they had like a little stage area, and everyone before me was doing fine, and I went in. I remember going in arrogant. I remember going in just being like, I kill it at the True Brew Cafe open mic every week. These guys don't even know. And just the first time telling a joke and it getting nothing. The very first time you say something that normally got something and it gets a 0% reaction.
That was your whole time in life when you're young.
It throws your whole existence. It's like, everything's a lie. Everything's a lie. Is there a God? You know, like you're just... Is my name even Sean? Like just everything fell apart. But I mean, I've had variations of that throughout my career. And I hate saying this, but there will be more of those times.
No, 100% there will be.
Like it's part of it. And I think there are like, I mean, dude, I've seen bombs I've seen people get so confident early on in comedy and like never think they were ever going to bomb. And then see them really bomb for the first time. And I know people who didn't come back from it.
Wow.
It's almost like I'm talking about like an actual war, but it's like, I've seen people bomb so hard that they do not return from it. And it's like, that's how hard that's how the impact of a true bomb can destroy
you.
Everything about you, about your ambition suddenly goes away. Because then you're afraid to ever be yourself again. That's why I always, like when younger comics ask for advice or want to talk comedy, I always tell them like, just lean into bombing. Yeah. Accept it, embrace it, like understand that it's necessary and it's going to make you, killing doesn't always make you better. Killing can make you lazy.
100%, because you wind up doing the exact same set every night.
Right. Like bombing is actually those moments where you grow a little bit more and like, yeah, it sucks. Yeah, I mean, dude, like I had a set fucking last weekend in New York where I got off stage and was just like, fuck this. I was just so like, I didn't say that out loud, just in my head was like so pissed off. And I went and I got a nosebleed, which happens whenever I go back to it's weird. Whenever I go back to New York for the first time after not being in New York for an extended period of time, which had just happened. I was on the road.
You got a nosebleed?
I'll get a nosebleed. Like, I've seen doctors about it, like it's no big deal, it's a change in pressure, it's nothing, don't freak out about it. But I had this nosebleed and I remember I was in the bathroom and I was so angry, I was just like, just let it bleed.
So was the set just miserable?
It was one of those sets where I didn't bomb or kill. It felt like they were just like there. And I felt like, and I'd rather bomb or kill. I'd rather that than anything. I'd rather zero reaction than,
Yeah.
Oh God, it like makes my neck hurt just thinking of the audience, the middle of the road set. Ugh, brutal.
And it's such a interesting walk out of that room when that happens,
dude.
Because comics saw it too.
Oh yeah. And yeah, that's the other thing. You have other comics come up and be like, "Oh man, it wasn't that bad." It's like, just be real with me.
Yeah.
just walk up to me and be like, "Fuck, man, that audience." Like, start there. Yeah. Because I do that sometimes to comics, and I feel like they think I'm being an asshole. I'm like, no, I'm being honest with you. Yeah. I'm actually being more of a friend.
Yeah.
I know you hated that set.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to lie to your face and be like, great set, but
So what would you say to a person like that?
I would walk up, I would say, rough crowd, or I would walk up and be like, man, they just were not with it.
Yeah.
And that to me gives the comedian
an out,
or a moment where they can go, man, I just felt like I misdelivered or didn't open strong. And then we can actually talk about it.
Yeah.
Because I like it when people do that to me.
You're giving them an out.
Nate Bargatze?
I love him.
So he was the best at that. He was the best at walking over and being like, oh man, I don't know, man. Everybody they hate comedy. Just saying something that made you feel like, okay, he's being human with me.
Yeah.
So now I can open up and complain and vent and get that experience off my chest.
Yes.
And then it's gone.
Because you got to get it out, and that's one way to get it out, or get on stage right back and get the laughs. It's a very weird thing. Like you're only as good as your last set, kind of.
Right, and I know it's probably it's like the comedian to comedian equivalent of like an uncle joke. But when someone murders, going up and being like, "Oh man, where do you think you lost him?" You know, just do that and like, haha, taking a joke. And that's fucking funny. But I've also seen there are some people who are so precious that they're like, what are you talking about? I just murdered. It's like, did you? Okay.
Yeah.
But you understand that I'm fucking with you.
Like when Mark Cohen hears a comedian crushing, he'll always say in the back, oh, they're having trouble. Just to be funny. It's hilarious.
They're bombing. Yeah,
they're bombing.
It's fucking funny. Like that's the thing that I guess my one complaint about where comedy's going, because it's become so popular, is like it's becoming too cool. And I'm talking about comedians are becoming too cool. Like it's like, this is comedy. You're supposed to embrace the stupidity of the human condition, not trying to be up there being sexy and awesome and fucking look how cool and awesome I am. Look, oh man, look at my Instagram. I'm so dope all the time doing all this awesome shit. It's like, well, anyone can do that.
Yeah.
That's not, but what not anyone can do is take the human experience and the hardness and the weirdness and the awkwardness of it all and flip it over and make you understand it as an audience member, because we all go through it.
Now, when you say it's more popular now, are you saying that more people are on social media attempting it and things like that?
I'm saying we're probably 3 to 5 years. I'm saying, I hope not. I hope I'm wrong. I would love to be wrong, but I don't think I am. I think we're about 3 years away from there being cover comedians, meaning like,
well, that's what TikTok is.
No, but I mean actual, like clubs start booking like, oh, this guy's a Richard Pryor tribute comedian. So, or like this guy's a Sam Kinison tribute comedian, or like this guy, or even living comedians. Like this is a living Chris Rock impersonator, and they get on stage and they just do classic bits live to a T, and people will pay money to see that. Corporate. There won't be corporate gigs for comedians anymore, because why take a risk on a Michael Yo or a Sean Patton or someone you don't know, which they wouldn't. I would corporate comedians. I'm definitely not. Corporations, don't waste your money on me. But I'm saying like that'll start happening more and more, because I think comedy is like, when I started doing stand up, I remember I went to my parents. I told them I wanted to do it. I didn't need their permission, but I'm like, I'm going to do this. And I went to them because I needed to borrow their car, because I needed to fucking go out because I was busted.
You had to hustle to get.
But I remember my parents' reaction was very like, okay, I mean, you're all right, get it out of your system. They weren't super supportive right away, because it's like, you want to be a comedian? Nowadays, I think a kid could say, I want to be a comedian, and the parents like, well, you got to move to New York. You got to get your, like, there's enough out, there's enough.
But I don't even think it's that. They're like, if they say I want to be a comedian, we're like, all right, you got your iPhone, you got, now it's even easier.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they don't even need to move.
So to me, it's just like, yes, it's more popular in the sense, and I used the music reference earlier, how like there was probably an explosion of bands in the 90s. Yeah. And a lot of them went nowhere. But that's what's happening now. There's an explosion of comedians because everyone can mimic what they see. Everyone can be like, I can be the next.
Well, that's what TikTok is. They're taking comics words and just repeating them.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's literally what you're saying. People mouthing along.
Yeah,
like
to your words.
Super hot models doing like a Mike Vecchione bit. And you're like, Mike Vecchione's a brilliant comedian. Why the fuck? You're not even giving him credit. You're not even tagging him for your thousands of views on you doing a lip syncing a funny joke.
It's actually teaching young people to steal, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's what TikTok is.
And being funny for some reason is not respected as an actual talent. Like being able to sing, being able to dance, being able to.
I think in the industry it is, though.
In the industry it is.
Normal people, they just, because they're like, because normal people think, oh, I'm funny.
Everyone thinks they're fucking funny, bro. And like, here's the thing. I cannot remember the name of the book, but I was on this panel. This was like a decade ago, actually. I was on this panel. I was invited at the Bridgetown Comedy Festival, where these guys wrote this book about stand-up, and their big thing was like, everyone is funny. And I tried to argue, but it was at the end of the panel, and they were like, we don't have time for this. But I didn't know. Being funny is like, it's like athletics. Like, anyone can be athletic, but not everyone is a fucking athlete.
Yes.
That's how it is with humor. Anyone can be funny, but not everyone is funny. And that's not an insult. That's just a fact. And like, so I think people watch stand up, and when it's really good, it looks effortless.
Yes.
And then they're like, I can do that. And everyone says, I can be the next this, or this. But I think in order to be a comedian, you have to be willing to go, I am going to be the first me.
Yes.
And that is hard.
Preach, Sean Patton.
That is fucking hard. And anyone willing to take the journey, I respect you immensely, but we all got to fucking, it's hard.
It's hard. It's fucking
and that's
hard.
what makes it awesome. To quote Tom Hanks.
Yes, please. And then we got to go.
All right, Tom Hanks from A League of Their Own. It's supposed to be hard. If it weren't hard, everyone would do it. The hard is what makes it great.
There you go. Sean Patton, thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Comedy Cellar.
Go.